Well,
Cool.
thanks everyone for joining us. We're really excited for the conversation today. Hopefully, you enjoyed some Lucius to get you excited this morning. We also hope you have some coffee or tea to help you. I know this is early morning session for a lot of you, hopefully. So hopefully this will be worth your while and an exciting conversation. But Erin and I are so excited to be with you today to talk about how we can power up and use tech and data and people to accelerate impact. And we have some really cool learnings and case studies we're going to share with you all today, and also hopefully learn from you all, what you might be interested in programming, things that you might be working on in this space, so we can learn collectively from each other. We'll leave lots of time for questions throughout the presentations, but as a reminder, there's the Slack channel too. So if you go in, you can find our session and pop some questions in the Slack. Erin and I will try to monitor while each other are presenting and address those as we go. But like I said, we'll pause for questions along the way too. And hopefully this is a good opportunity for you to just learn a little bit more about some things currently happening in the tech and data for good space, and hopefully leaves you inspired to do some of this work either on your own or individually, or at your organizations moving forward. So again, really excited to be here. Erin and I thought that we could start by just introducing who we are and a little bit more about what we do. So I'm Maddie Hutchinson. I am on the Tech for Social Good team at JPMorgan. I've actually been on Tech for Social Good for 5 years and 51 weeks. My 6-year anniversary on Tech for Social Good is actually next week. So I've been with the Tech for Social Good team for about that time. Prior to that, I started my career in your traditional investment banking role and worked on some of our markets desks at JPMorgan for a few years. And it was a really cool experience, obviously a great way to learn a lot, but not where I saw myself going for my long-term career. I'd always been interested in the nonprofit space and the social sector, and really was just using JPMorgan to gain a bit of experience before I transitioned over to that space. But luckily found the Tech for Social Good team at JPMorgan, knew nothing about technology really, or implementing technology with nonprofits. But the team took a chance on me, and it's been an awesome experience and learning and building opportunity over the 6 years. I helped build out our pro bono programming in Tech for Social Good, which we now run about 200 or so projects every year, skilled volunteers and projects leveraging our 50,000 technologists at JPMorgan. And then I'm currently helping to build out our social good hackathons portfolio, and really helping nonprofits use hackathons as a way to ideate and innovate on how tech and data can solve problems that they're facing. And then lastly, I am an expat. I'm actually based in London. I moved across the pond at the end of last year, but really spent most of my career in New York. And I'm originally from the Midwest in Ohio. So Erin, over to you.
Yeah. So it turns out Maddie and I have a lot in common. Even though this is a Venn diagram, it should be more of just a pure circle. But in my background, I actually was a teacher for about a decade, tried to use data in my classroom, but just found I was always short on time and skill sets. I then spent some time in the nonprofit world and in the philanthropy world, and was excited to kind of getting closer and closer to helping the folks on the ground make really impactful change and evolve in how they work with their communities. And I was really excited when my math background led me to data and social impact. So I've been at 2 Sigma for just over 5 years. In the data clinic team, which is our pro bono data and tech for good initiative, like legal clinics, where we partner pro bono with mission-driven organizations on their data and tech challenges. And I manage our partner project pipeline from scoping to post-project, where we have over 300 volunteers, data scientists, engineers, and non-technical folks eager to give their expertise back. And also I have the great pleasure of connecting with peers such as Maddie here in sharing learnings and best practices. And it also turns out we just have this hilarious small world connection through the Western New York. So we have a family connection in Buffalo, and share our love of Lucius, the music you heard at the very beginning, and a lot of other things. So excited to be here with her to talk to you about our experiences and other companies' experiences in this space, and to hopefully continue to empower you to work on all this. So back to, oh, Maddie, did you want to go through the?
Yeah, sure.
survey?
I think, as Erin and I just shared a little bit more about you, we're really looking to learn or about ourselves. We're really looking to learn a little bit more about you and who's on the call today. So if you are someone who maybe works in a nonprofit organization, or maybe you work in the CSR space at your organization, or maybe you're just super excited as a tech and data for good enthusiast and exploring individually how you can contribute to that space, or maybe you were just inspired by our Power Up title and our Curious Learner, looking to see more about what you can do in this tech and data for good space and using this to help social impact. So it looks like, for the most part, we have some nonprofits representatives here, which is amazing. A few curious learners, which is great, and some tech and data for good enthusiasts. So a good mix of people on the line. Love to hear that. This will help Erin and I kind of figuring out how we can tailor this conversation to the audience, and make sure that we're hitting on points that are helpful for all these different groups and buckets. Awesome. So before Erin and I deep dive into a little bit more about this work that we see across the tech and data for good space, and how organizations are partnering together and helping nonprofits, wanted to give a brief background on how Erin and I got together and what work is being done in this space. There is a need that the for-profit sector has seen for the scaling of nonprofits, tech and data journeys and missions in order to help them better serve their constituents. And so, as you probably know, a lot of organizations have started tech and data for good programming. And this has been something that was really helpful to obviously these nonprofits in getting resources and skills they may not have in order to build out tech and data solutions that will help them better serve their constituents, scale their missions, develop programming, et cetera. And one thing that we've started to notice by doing work in this space is that nonprofits are kind of on this spectrum of where they're at in adopting technology and data at their organizations. And I call it a spectrum because it's not linear. We're not saying that all nonprofits need to go from point A to point B, or starting line to an ending line, but more so we've started to recognize that when working with nonprofits and kind of engaging with them, we've bucketed nonprofits into what we like to call these 4 buckets. And I'm sure some of the nonprofit partners on here can relate with where they may fall. But we wanted to use this as a catalyst for how we talk about our case studies today and some of the work that we've done, just to show that no matter where nonprofits are on this spectrum, there is opportunities for them to engage with corporates to help with their data and tech needs. And, there's not really limitations for what we are or not able to do, depending on where you are on this spectrum. A lot of the organizations organizations and case studies we're going to highlight, you'll be able to see that we've worked with nonprofits from a variety of different mission areas, focus areas, as well as kind of their adoption of technology or data. And so we bucketed into these 4 buckets, starting with the accidental techie. This is what we think of as that organization who maybe doesn't have a dedicated technology resource, but instead has what we call the accidental techie, which is typically the person who maybe is a millennial or knew how to work the Zoom account, or is really one of their program managers who has great experience in basic technical things like maybe databases and or updating website, or is really able to play around with certain things, but they don't have a formalized role in technology at the organization. So hence the accidental techie. And a lot of nonprofits start with maybe this as they're starting to think about using tech and data a little bit further. Then we move on to the power users. These are where a lot of the nonprofits, at least we at JPMorgan, see that are those individuals who maybe have tech or data platforms that they're using, but they're really using them with the basic functionality. So maybe you have a CRM or a data analysis tool that you may use at your organization, but kind of using the out of box or basic functionality of that, but you're really great at doing that. Then the next bucket we see are the innovators. So these are organizations that have taken those technologies out of the box and maybe started to customize or think about what technology you could use in conjunction with those existing platforms to really meet your needs and help you scale your programming and mission. These organizations typically maybe have a few technology or data aligned employees who are really focused on that for their organization. And then last bucket is our disruptors. Those are the organizations who are really thinking about how tech and data can influence how their programming works. It's very integrated into how they do things, maybe having apps or comprehensive algorithms to help them with their programming and mission. And these organizations typically have like teams of technologists or data scientists at their organizations, really helping them to build out what their tech and data adoption may look like. So, Erin, sorry, I think your Zoom popped up. Yeah. So this is where we see our kind of 4 main buckets of where nonprofits are at. And again, this is more of a scale, not necessarily a linear line, but hopefully these buckets, you can relate to if you're at a nonprofit organization, or if you're working in this space, you recognize that this is really a journey that a lot of nonprofits are going on as they're thinking about using tech and data. So that was helpful in the sense that that's kind of what organizations started to think about when they started building out tech and data for good programming. So I'm sure a lot of organizations in the sector are really focused on how they can use their resources and skills to help nonprofits with tech and data adoption. And there's a lot of organizations that are doing this and continuing to do this. And it's really inspiring to see how the sector is growing and changing. But what we've started to recognize, Erin and myself, is that we were going to conferences and meeting others in this space and really learning from each other, starting to ask questions like, how did you build that out? Or, we want to start a pro bono or skilled volunteerism program. What were those steps you took? Or how are you helping nonprofits? We're seeing a lot of them with these types of tech or data challenges. And it really was just some informal catch-ups at annual conferences like this, and really getting to learn from each other. And so in 2018, JPMorgan recognized the need to maybe formalize this a bit more and bring together a group of individuals who are running these tech or data programs to launch a Tech for Social Good symposium. And this symposium really, again, was a way to just provide more frequent touch points for organizations to resource share and learn about how we are working with nonprofits in this space. And then in 2019, we gained a lot of traction over our first year, and we reached 20 organizations, corporates who were in this space, who were interested in just learning from each other and continuing to build with each other. And this was great because we started to find ways that we could share resources and best practices among the group. And it wasn't until 2020 that we started to recognize, wow, a lot of us are working, in the pro bono space. A lot of us have hackathons, grants that we're giving out, and maybe some of us are even working with the same nonprofit organization. So we started to try to think about how could we collaborate across this space and what does collaboration look like? And that's when we started to build out a landscape, if you will, of different programming that existed in the space, and being able to say, okay, we're working, with this nonprofit doing this. We might not be able to help you. We come to the end of our project, but if you go to this company, they'll be able to help you. So we were doing a lot of handoff and kind of resource sharing amongst the nonprofit engagements that we had, and really building out that landscape internally for ourselves to say, okay, if we're not able to help these nonprofits, who can we refer them to that are part of the symposium? On the other side, Erin was at the same time, and the Two Sigma team was building out a corporate data and philanthropy collective, and very similarly was focused on how they could resource share and learn from each other, organizations who are doing work in this data for good space. And they've started to build out in 2020 as well a landscape of kind of all the data for good programming that existed. And what was funny was we started to recognize that organizations were kind of double counting in both of our organizations. So we had some corporates who were part of the corporate data philanthropy collective and some that were part of the Tech for Good symposium. And they kind of said to us, hey, Erin, Maddie, you guys should meet. You guys are doing very similar stuff across the space. And in 2021, that's when Erin and I decided to merge the Tech for Good symposium and the corporate data philanthropy collective into one. And at the same time, we had also noticed we were both working on these landscapes that, again, were an internal resource for us to know what each other were doing. But we started to recognize that this is something we should look at providing externally as a free resource to the nonprofits and other individuals in the sector to kind of learn what was happening in the space. And so we launched our landscape at last year, and we're really excited to talk you through that today. So I'm going to hand it over to Erin to give a little bit more about what that landscape looks like and how we have launched it.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. So yeah, as Maddie said, we kind of had this perfect case study of why a landscape is really important. We were doing this kind of in isolation. It was only kind of like by happenstance that we got connected to each other. So how could we save others from wanting duplicate efforts and accelerate these learnings and growth so that we could have our programs could have a greater impact, more mission-driven organizations could get the supports they needed, et cetera. So we really wanted to avoid the problem of missed opportunities that this lack of visibility was causing. So we combined our various resources and did come up with this free open resource, which we built in Airtable. Think of it as like almost like a spreadsheet on steroids, and has like really beautiful colors. It's very user friendly. You can adjust it to your needs to find the information you need. So in it, you'll see all the companies that are in our Tech for Good symposium, alongside the details on their programs. So what are they offering? How much is that access to that cost? Broad descriptions. And this is where it kind of turns into a yellow pages, where you have direct contact information, which I got to say is one of the things that was hardest to find back when we were setting up a data clinic many years ago. We were spending so much time on Google trying to find the website for the different programs and the contact links. And here we go, we've got consolidated it. And lastly, you'll also find some descriptors, indicators on the types of partners that these programs work with. So is it NGOs? Do they work with B Corps? Is it, they actually go directly into the communities? And do they have any specific topic areas that they work on? So this is seen as an actionable yellow pages directory of the tech and data for good landscape. And, we hope, as Maddie said, that this is going to lead to a lot of great learning and opportunities, and very specifically that the social impact world will feel empowered to actually find supports that are relevant to their needs. So rather than spending hours in internet searches, hopefully this will take that down to just a couple minutes, and then immediately getting into shooting off emails, having phone calls, etc. Mission-driven orgs have limited time and bandwidth. Then, as Maddie said, we were already kind of doing referrals before with the orgs we were familiar with. Now that we have a better view on the landscape, we can make more referrals, more effective referrals, to ensure that no need goes unmet. With these supports existing, there should always be a partnership somewhere between the need and the support orgs. And then lastly, not only can Maddie and I, now that we know about each other, share our experiences and learn from each other and about our different types of programs, but hopefully this visibility also will inspire other corporates, other for-profits to maybe set up a program of their own. It can be pretty intimidating to, get your feet wet, but now that you have folks you can immediately reach out to, hopefully that can lower the barrier to entry into this field. So with those goals in mind, we want to pause before we see the landscape in action, see if there are any questions from you all thus far on the symposium, or kind of the initial impetus to create this landscape and put it out there in the public. And Maddie, I think I've accidentally shared my entire screen rather than just the program, so I can't see the chat.
Yeah, no questions yet in the chat or the Slack, Erin. But one thing, maybe while people are thinking of any questions they may have, one question I think we get a lot, Erin, is like, okay, these are maybe seen as traditional competitors in the space who are now working together to produce this this collective resource. So how does that work, and what do we do to make sure that it's as comprehensive as possible and highlighting, all organizations equally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. I haven't seen any of that air of competitiveness from the market in our community. There's just such a willingness to open up, talk about the things you want to try, the things you're looking to learn about. And just every time somebody asks a question, there's always somebody raising a hand saying, actually, yeah, we've tried that. Why don't we have a conversation? Or I'd be happy to do kind of like a deeper dive presentation in our next meeting. So I think it just kind of goes along with the sector that we all recognize that the only way we're going to make impact and more impact is by reducing redundancy and continuously growing and learning. We have to scale somehow, and that's by not making the same mistakes others have and continuously improving upon what we've done before. So every professional I've seen recognize that need and sees it as a crucial element of success for their team and for the folks that they're trying to impact. don't know if there's anything else you would add on that, Maddie.
No, I think you hit it on, Erin. We always say this is one space we're not competitive in, where we are happy to share our learnings because the demand for our Tech for Good programs is way higher than the supply that we can do each year. So totally hit it on the head. Erin, Rachel did ask a question. Are the organizations in your landscape service providers or funders, pro bono or for-profit?
Great question. And excited to tell you that it's actually all. So the great thing is maybe not every company on there provides all those things, but you'll see those all represented amongst the various programs that are in the landscape. We have funders, we have folks who provide consulting, we have kind of direct partnerships with sharing skills, we have software credits or service discounts. We're going to go through some case studies to see this in action and how you can drill into the landscape to find those various characteristics that you might be looking for.
Cool. And Erin, maybe that's a good segue into showing everyone what the landscape looks like. And as Erin's pulling that up, just a reminder, this is as comprehensive as a list as we have at this moment, but we recognize it's not fully comprehensive. The landscape is just comprised of the organizations who are part of our Tech for Good symposium. So there's obviously other organizations who are doing this work as well. And our hope is that this is a living, breathing resource that will continue to be updated as we learn about new programming and our organizations provide new offerings.
Yes, great point. And hoping that events like this will attract other folks to join our community and share their information through this resource. So as a reminder, Maddie already showed this, but we're going to provide examples across this kind of maturity spectrum, tech and data maturity spectrum. So we're going to see something with the accidental techies, those who are just getting their feet wet, the power users who are really comfortable with some like off-the-shelf software, innovators who are starting to tailor off of those tools, and the disruptors who are really kind of very comfortable thinking outside the box, maybe building from scratch tools or algorithms, etc. So let's say that you start off as this accidental techie, and you're at an international NGO. You are looking to convene local community orgs on the ground, and specifically you're working in gender equality. How can you get those orgs to collaborate and learn from each other? Well, you think that tech would be a great facilitator. So let's try to build a platform. Not totally sure what this would cost or exactly how much budget I could allocate for this, but I want to start exploring my options for support. So we're going to take a look at the landscape. I'm going to try to do this live. Bear with me. Oh, no. Okay, here we go. Okay, can y'all see my Google Chrome window? All right, so I'm going to bit.ly/T4G Tech for Good landscape. Got a short link and we'll share that again at the end. And you come to the Tech and Data for Good landscape. Actually, make this a little smaller here. So I'm going to go up to my filters. Here I have all the programs in one go when I first go to the window with over 60 programs. But if I filter, I can go through the various categories I just talked about. So first off, I'm looking for, if I want to build a tool, I might need some access to skills for people who can actually build that platform. And I might need some help in learning how to facilitate that tool afterwards. So maybe I do skills building as well. And then next column right after that is cost. So if I go in, I'm TBD, so I'm going to not do any filters on that. I can figure out, well, who do these programs work with? So if I go to we work with, I said I'm an INGO, so click INGO, that's pretty easy. And I'm working in gender equality, so I can also filter on the sectors that they work in. And right now, we tried to find the most universal language for this. So we've been using the SDGs as our sector-specific programs, but you can also click any sector. So the programs that are sector agnostic, that's great. But I also want to check the folks who specifically work in gender equality. And what do we know? We've got about 13 programs here that do offer the kinds of things that I'm looking for. And let's say that I've actually connected with Dell in the past, and I think they're really great. So would love to learn about what their tech pro bono program is. I can open it up, do a little reading on the background. I can see that you have to be a registered nonprofit or charity, and I've got an email address. So I can immediately click on that email, start the conversation with Dell, and see if they might be a good partner for this specific need. So if I go back to my presentation, I can see an example of this that actually occurred. So our peer Dell, that's in the symposium, had this amazing project with the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund. They're looking to see how they can improve digital literacy across the world in nonprofits to help them have a greater impact. And what they did is, after WPHF applied for some guidance, and support in building this out, they developed what you see on the right, a password protected online platform where all of these on the ground women's organizations could connect, learn from each other. And they also provided some platform licenses to get them involved. And they use this on Microsoft technology. So you can see another collaboration there. And this has been so successful that WPHF has actually expanded, created a whole learning hub with over 800 civil society leaders. And as you see, over 13,000 visits, really positive feedback. So it was a really successful program. But we would be remiss if we didn't also show that we learn a lot. These aren't just pure, successes. We also see where there are gaps and where we can continue to learn. That's the whole point of this learning community. So Dell shared that through this, they saw that while they were able to, facilitate the visibility and networking between these orgs, that a lot of the small programs still needed additional guidance to know that this exists and that how and why they should actually make use of it. So there was some additional bandwidth that was needed there. And further, in order for WPHF to feel comfortable and confident, make that this is a sustainable solution for them, they were able to identify that, something like this requires some significant resources, staff, et cetera, to continually adapt to their needs. So with this in mind, they know how to set other orgs up for success for a similar program. And they were willing to share that with our fellow peers in this space. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to you, Maddie, for the next case study.
Thanks, Erin. And such a cool example, I think. One thing that Dell does a great job of is really helping the nonprofits, think through what offerings are available of existing technologies and other programming that can help them in the space. And I think it's cool to see the impact that project specifically had in advancing gender equality and helping the women. So I love that example. And Carol had mentioned that it was very similar to her organization. So cool to see. You might see that through some of our case studies that your organization may fall within these buckets and how you might be able to use the resource to connect with some of the groups. So we're going to move to the second bucket, which, as you remember, is the power users. So these are organizations that maybe currently are using some technology out of the box, dabbling in tech and data to help them with their programming and their missions. So you're a power user at a nonprofit organization. And in this specific example, we're going to talk through, they're really focused on workforce training and development. And they needed a way to support tech skills building. So the organization was really focused on workforce development in upskilling job seekers in technology to hopefully gain roles in various international companies. And again, they maybe have a small budget for the programming that they're doing, but maybe not necessarily all the budget that they need in order to upskill the wealth of or the wide range of individuals who need this program and training. So what this organization could have done is searched, obviously, as a nonprofit, working really with or looking for organizations who work with nonprofits across any sector, but maybe specifically focused on the Sustainable Development Goal 8. And then also really focused on offerings for both skills building opportunities and funding. This specific example, the organization was looking for some grants to help with their upskilling. So that led them to learn more about Microsoft and the Microsoft Philanthropies program. And Microsoft does a lot of great work in the tech and data for good space. This specific example is going to be around some of the work that they did on the upskilling of helping with the upskilling of the workforce in technology. And one example of an organization they worked through with this programming is Africa Tikkun. And this organization is really responsible for upskilling those job seekers in recruiting and assessing them across South Africans for in-demand jobs. But they're just one organization in a wide pool of organizations that Microsoft has partnered with, and really focusing on, again, upskilling job seekers, and especially focused during the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of roles went virtual. There was a lot of furloughs, a lot of layoffs. So there was a lot of job seekers looking for new opportunity and that training. And so Microsoft, along with some other organizations like LinkedIn and GitHub, have built and administered free training courses. So training courses for these individuals to get upskilled and learn new technologies and certifications in order to find new jobs and meet the demand for these jobs across the world. And so through their programming, Microsoft was able to provide these low cost test and certification programs to the nonprofits, as well as grants. So through their programming, able to provide some funding to help these organizations like Africa Tikkun, who are working on building this out. And through that programming, they've trained over 30 million job seekers, and Microsoft's provided more than $20 million in cash grants to organizations working in the workforce development space. So a really cool way to show the scale that a lot of this programming can do, and the reach that it has in helping to upskill the job seekers out there for new opportunities. So a great case study of how the landscape can help you find those funding opportunities and skills partnerships.
Great, thanks. And now the last bucket. So these folks who are, maybe have research tech data staff on hand, but they maybe just need more bandwidth to tackle additional problems or nice to haves, or looking for a new perspective on a problem that they're facing. So for this case study, we're going to look at an innovator, again, a nonprofit, but a reminder that there are programs that work with B Corps, government agencies, research institutions, et cetera. And this nonprofit works in disaster. Oh, wait.
It's all right. Erin's trying to do my slides, so that's okay. I was going to let you go, Erin.
Apologies, Maddie. I just got so excited.
It's okay. It's okay. I was gonna let you go with it. No, before we get to Erin's great case study example, just yes, this organization's working in disaster recovery, and really was focused on trying to find an integrated survey tool. And they did partner with our organization in the past, and I'll get to that when we flip to the case study itself. But they were really looking for a way to integrate a survey tool with their existing CRM platform. And they had a very small budget to help build this out. And so this is actually an example of how the organization could find this. Again, searching by the nonprofits, really working in any sector, then looking for offerings on access to skills or pro bono, and thinking, with the small budget that they had, really looking for something that was a true pro bono or a free resource for the nonprofit to leverage. And that is maybe how they landed up on our JPMorgan programming and our Tech for Social Good programming. And this case study is specifically with an organization called React, previously known as Team Rubicon. And React is a British disaster relief charity, and they help and kind of first responders on a lot of the different natural disasters that happen around the world. But during the COVID pandemic, really had to bring their services back home when they realized a lot of organizations and individuals across the UK were struggling during the COVID pandemic. And what they were seeing was a lot of individuals were not able to get access because of the lockdowns and not being able to leave their home to the medication and food resources that they needed during that time. And so we had worked with React in the past to build and scale out their CRM platform and solution, but they were now looking for a way to integrate a digital survey tool that would talk to that CRM. So again, back to the spectrum, they had already been using a CRM and kind of were great in the power users, but we're now looking to figure out how to innovate and build some customization on top so that their volunteers could quickly assess those requests coming in for access to food and medication, and catalog those needs. And then also they were really focused on the data security. Obviously, a lot of information about people, where they live, what medications they were on, the access to food that they needed are some highly sensitive topics. So what would be a secure way of collecting that information, sharing it with the volunteers who are going to go out and help source some of those items for people, and then also needed an opportunity to do this offline, as not all the volunteers were going to have access to data while they were working on the iPads that the nonprofit had. So what we ended up doing was building out this awesome survey tool that integrated with their CRM, and again would show volunteers all of the requests in their area. Volunteers could then be able to rank those various requests based on the need and the urgency of that need. And then that put together the list of how the volunteers would go out and source those items. And it again was awesome. It was a offline tool that then once the iPads connected to internet, were able to feed back to the headquarters so they could see where the major needs were across the various regions in the UK. And this technology is still currently being used by React, but it's actually being used across the globe and internationally now. So it's really been helpful, initially was being used to help with COVID response, but now as it's expanding globally, also being used for disaster relief across the globe. And I think our key learning from that was really at any moment, a lot of nonprofits' needs can change based on a current landscape. They had their tools that they were using with our previous partnerships in their CRM, but obviously during the pandemic quickly needed this surveying tool. And now they've been able to kind of adopt it and use it to help with back in their disaster relief focused work. So it's a really interesting learning from us on just making sure that we are building technology that can adapt and scale scale with the nonprofit based on the needs of their constituents. And I encourage you to check out more information on our site. You can read more about React and some of the other projects that we've done, but they're a really great organization, and we love to be able to continue to partner with nonprofits year on year in our programming, which I think a lot of organizations in the landscape are excited about as well. And now, Erin, over to you.
You can start mine. All right. Yeah. Okay. So now where I should. So that was the innovator tailoring on top of solutions. They were comfortable with their tech and building off of that. And now the disruptors, those who are, have full-on research tech data teams that are looking for additional perspectives on their challenges or new bandwidth to tackle a problem with them. But I want to say the great thing that Maddie said is that we love that too, that seeing a nonprofit on their journey and how their needs adapt and working with them multiple times, that's one of our great joys too. And we've seen folks go from, an innovator to a disruptor, a power user to an innovator. So hopefully you'll see friendly faces along your journey. But for this one, we're going to see a disruptor at a nonprofit again that works specifically in health and was looking for a predictive model. So they needed somebody who, data scientist, who could help them build off of research they'd already done. And they really just didn't have any budget. So they really needed a pure pro bono program. So similar to the last example on the landscape, NGOs in any sector, because we don't have any that specifically only work in health, access to skills and a pro bono program. You might come down here and see, oh, 2 Sigma Data Clinic. Well, this is definitely a data problem. I haven't heard of 2 Sigma Data Clinic before. We aren't your household JPMorgan name, but you click on the website, read a bit more about the description of the program, and turns out it's a pretty good fit for your need. Then you might see a partnership like the one I'm going to talk about now. So at our 2 Sigma Data Clinic, we connected with Nurse Family Partnership a few years ago now. It's this wonderful nationwide program that supports vulnerable first-time mothers in their homes. So they take registered nurses, pair them up with these mothers, and guide them through from pregnancy through the first year of the beginning of the child's life. So it's a very successful program. There's been a lot of RCTs, evaluations that show that they have really great outcomes on the health and general outcomes for both the mother and child. And it helps social work programming services save money because these mothers and children are better set up for success. Unfortunately, though, they saw a fairly large drop off in the program. So about 2/3 of the moms left early for one reason or the other. So they came to us and asked, could we help them try to flag which moms might be at risk of dropping out so that they could take more proactive preventative measures and keep them in the program longer so they see more of those benefits themselves. So our team of data scientists worked with a Nurse Family Partnership, built this predictive model that the nurses can now receive saying, hey, we think this mom might drop out in the next 2 months. And the nurse can go pick up the phone, go visit the mom proactively, maybe outside their schedule to see what can we do to better support you in your journey. We did this over a long-term part-time collaboration, working very closely with the research team at NFP that actually already did some initial work on finding correlates with program retention, but they needed help distilling such a complex problem and thinking about it in a more kind of predictive future view to better learn how the past can help us understand the potential future for these moms. And we were able to come up with a model that we're comfortable with the performance on. And NFP is now currently piloting this with a group of sites to get feedback from the nurses and see how it runs on the ground. We'll make some adjustments, and then we'll soon engage in an evaluation trial to try to come up with a more quantitative measure of how this might impact the retention of mothers in the program. So really exciting to have to see a partnership go beyond the deliverable and have our team actually involved in the ongoing implementation and evaluation of a deliverable. And our key learning here was that our standard model, which was this approximately 6-month part-time collaboration, isn't necessarily the best for every program. The situation here, the data was so complex and took such a long time to orient yourself around and understand the nuances of that. We think that this actually could have been more effectively or efficiently done in a shorter but more intensive collaboration. So our team's excited to expand our offerings to have more modes and structures of collaboration with our partners. So we've seen now 4 case studies across the various maturity spectrum. So nonprofits of all levels can see how their work might be reflected in the types of partnerships that are available through the landscape. And hopefully for-profits can see that you can develop programs that will meet the nonprofits at their various needs. And hopefully by, again, continuing to build out this learning community, we can do this work even better and more effectively on both sides of these partnerships. But that was just the first step, right? So what comes next after you identify a partner, and hopefully that just a couple minutes of filtering and researching on that landscape. Obviously, every program's scoping or engagement model is going to look slightly different. But there are some things that are pretty common across the board. And so we want to just get you set off on the right foot, thinking about the kinds of topics that you might want to discuss in your first, second conversation with these programs. Doesn't matter if you're the mission-driven org or the support organization. These are some of the topics that are pretty important to lay out at the beginning of your conversations. So first off, kind of like a more technical thing, what's the bandwidth needed for engaging here? Obviously nonprofits have pretty restricted bandwidth and resources, and the type of needs for every program can be very different. So get a sense of your where you're at in your year, your schedule, and see if that might be a good fit. Next up, it's really important to understand if any data, tech, or topics are off limits. There are some orgs that might not be able to take in personally identifiable information, so might need to aggregate data up to a higher level, or there might be some programs that work specifically in their company's technology. Might be a tech match or misfit between the two orgs. So kind of lay out some of those early on. Even if maybe some topics are off limit, you might be able to reframe your problem or your research question or the tooling so that there can be a fit between you and that organization. Then you obviously, on both sides, have some goals. You're going to have some shared goals. You want to increase impact for the communities that are being served, but then there might be some additional things, requirements for the funders of those mission-driven orgs, or maybe the programs measure their success in a specific way. So lay out your goals, your vision, so that you can make sure that you're aligned both on the specifics of the project and the big picture during and after the project, so that you're really working on this together and you're working in concert. Next up, it's really great to understand how your past experiences can influence this. On the support org side, if you've worked on a similar project that might be applicable here, again, reduce redundancy, stop recreating the wheel. Think about how you can build off previous solutions and adapt them to new scenarios. The more we can be nimble and reuse learnings, the more we can reach more orgs and see how adapting can make real impact. On the nonprofit side, if you already tried solving this problem, but it didn't work, make sure that that learning is shared early on so that you're not spinning your wheels on old tried, test and failed solutions. We also want to make sure that we're being very respectful, responsible in these projects. So how do we ensure that we work very responsibly with this vulnerable population or a sensitive topic? That's going to have a lot of different angles associated with that. It might be, what type of training do we have to provide the volunteers so they can work on this? It might be for the nonprofit, what type of contextual information or background information would be really helpful to ensure that this is a really valuable and respectful collaboration. And it might also be some technical conversations around what are the biases present in the data and what type of contextual information do we need to bring in to understand any hidden factors in this work. And then beyond the actual kind of core work itself, you need to make sure that you're already starting to think about what comes next. So what kind of training or onboarding is provided to ensure a smooth transition from the org that creates that deliverable to the team that's going to manage it moving forward. So you want to make sure you're prepared for that stage of the process. And then lastly, what kind of support is available after the program? So can that nonprofit ping you with questions a year down the road? Great to have that sense of what will be the long-term elements of this partnership. All right, back to you, Maddie.
Thanks, Erin. Cool. So I know that we are at almost at time and want to save the last 2 minutes for questions, but Erin and I just wanted to thank you all for joining in the conversation today. I think hopefully you walked away with some good ideas of how technology and data can be used to accelerate change, how partnerships across sector and amongst the sector are so important and crucial to being able to deliver solutions to scale missions and helps better serve constituents. And hopefully you were able to find a little bit more about the landscape and how your organization or you as an individual might be able to use that to help power up some of the work that you are doing in the space as well. We've included a link to the landscape on this slide, our bit.ly link, as well as our symposium email address. Reach out to us. We are always here to help support. We've also included our LinkedIn information and emails to learn more about the programs in our Tech and Data for Good space. And we'll also include this in the Slack chat as well. But yeah, just wanted to take a quick pause and before we wrap to see if there are any questions.
Quick check Slack too.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully this was a great session and we look forward to seeing you work with us in the landscape in the future.
Yeah, thank you everybody so much. Enjoy the rest of your time at the Good Tech Fest. It's been a pleasure.